Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. Let's do it. Let's get to it. Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. I'm your host, Jon June, and of course, without a doubt, gotta have my man with me, Greg Penniman. It's your birthday week, by the way.
Yes, sir. It is. Yep. 30, 31.
31. That's crazy. How you doing today, Greg?
Good. Doing all right, man. Birthday week, final week of the regular season in fantasy for majority of leagues. Definitely an important week in all ways. Gotta get this win. Some leagues, already in, just kind of like, determining seeding. Some leagues definitely need that win. I just want to get in healthy, man. That in one league lost Kirk and Stevenson in one team, so feeling tough for that league. But yeah, just hoping we can all get in healthy next week.
Yeah, man. Monday was rough for a lot of different reasons. I mean, Trevor Lawrence ended up going down with at the time it looked a lot worse. But right now it's looking like it seems to be a high ankle sprain. So he's highly questionable for Sunday's game. But Christian Kirk, like you mentioned, going down, he'll be out at least 8 weeks with a looks like
sports
hernia, core muscle injury. So definitely unfortunate if you lost those guys going into the fantasy playoffs. As I was mentioning on the Monday show, if you need to win this week, I got news for you. You're in the playoffs. You are in the playoffs. If you need to win and get in, you are in the playoffs. There's no way around that.
Yeah.
Right. So, you got to have that same mentality. Every player on your roster, if they are getting in the way of helping you win this week, they got to go. Right. Like it is what it is. Right. I honestly, there's certain players where I'll do anything I can not to cut them. I'm talking about guys specifically that are on bye weeks or injured or things like that. I will not be afraid to drop a Kyler Murray if need be. I mean, I wouldn't want to because he plays Philadelphia next week. But if I have to do that to win this week, then Kyler Murray doesn't help me next week if I'm not in. So, just things to think about, things to consider. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and it's win and get in. That's essentially it sounds like playoffs to me. But as we always do every Wednesday, got to break down Thursday night football, give our Thursday night football preview. If you are watching on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, or Twitch, definitely comment, like, subscribe. Make sure you are getting those alerts when we put out a new show, when we schedule a new episode. Like tomorrow, for example, when we will not be recording at our 3 p.m. regular 3 p.m. Eastern time, we will be on at 4:30. So if you are subscribed to like YouTube, for example, you will get the notification that we've scheduled a show for tomorrow at 4:30. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, otherwise, the time constraint doesn't really matter to you as much. It just means you'll get the episode an hour and a half or so later than you normally would. But nothing else will change. But if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, make sure you go ahead, comment, or like and subscribe. Leave a 5-star review. Definitely goes a long way to help the show out. But without further ado, we've got some football to talk about, Greg, if you can call it that.
Rugby, I don't know what's going to be called.
I
paint dry, watching paint dry. Yeah. It's got to be in the history. I've seen bets lowest over under I've ever seen in my life. Got to be.
Yeah. DraftKings, I saw a tweet today. It was the lowest over under in DraftKings sportsbook history.
There you go.
For an NFL game. So
there you go.
And if you don't know what game we're talking about, Thursday Night Football on Prime, hashtag not a sponsor, the 2-10 New England Patriots are traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the 7-5 Pittsburgh Steelers, where this game has a 30.5 point total. Pittsburgh Steelers are 6-point favorites in this one. Both teams playing with essentially, I guess it's safe to just call them backup quarterbacks at this point. All right, Mitchell Trubisky is in essence a backup quarterback, as Kenny Pickett will have to miss some time with a high ankle sprain, and Bailey Zappi, all intents and purposes, is a backup quarterback who's just being given the opportunity to start. And it's not like, maybe he could be the guy we start in the future. Like, nah.
Nope. We've seen him half the year pretty much because of how Belichick just swaps them and him in and out. Seems like all year.
So we are going to talk about this game, but before we do, Evan Gittleman has a question for us via way of YouTube. Bench one, half PPR, Saquon, Swift, Warren, D-Hop, or Ridley. Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk both hurt. How does that impact Ridley? Also, Najee is banged up. If he's out, is Warren a must start? I will start with that last one. Najee Harris is banged up, did miss practice. I mean, it's a walkthrough essentially, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they have the short week. Najee Harris was a DNP with a knee injury. So definitely a little bit of a concern, but if he misses, I think the same way we're all flocking to play Zeke Elliott in this game with Ramondre Stevenson out, we should be plugging Jaylen Warren in our lineups.
Yeah, absolutely. Warren is even probably already on a lot of rosters. It's not like, Zeke was definitely going to be like an instant RB1, like coming in after Stevenson. Warren already putting up great numbers with Najee starting. If he's out, Warren's got to be up there for sure. Najee he rarely misses games though. Like he has to take a real injury for Najee to miss a game though, for sure.
Yeah, I forgot he had something last year where I was like, he had a high ankle sprain, I think it was, and I was like, yeah, there's no way Najee plays.
Yeah, and I feel like he had a short week too, and they ended up playing.
And he played, and he was, effective for Najee.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk both hurt. How does that impact Ridley? Honestly, I don't really have a great feel for that. If I'm being honest, Christian Kirk went out and you thought Ridley would come in and, take on a lot of these targets and a lot of these targets be funneled to him. And that did not happen. When CJ Beathard came in relief of Trevor Lawrence, you thought, okay, maybe he's going to start peppering Calvin Ridley with targets. That also did not happen. I really find it really hard to get a read on Ridley right now because it's been up and down
all season.
I think we all there was a short sample size to say the least, but there was this thought that, hey, maybe he needs Zay Jones out there so that they can move him around more and get him targets because some of his best games came when Zay Jones was on the field. But Zay Jones was on the field a lot yesterday, and I didn't see much of a shift on Monday rather, and I didn't see much of a shift in the offensive philosophy there. So I'm gonna consider Ridley, basically a tough one to put a finger on, and for that reason, he'll probably be the guy out of this group that I end up benching.
Yeah, it's still tough between him and D-Hop.
D-Hop did have a good game last week.
Yeah.
Was targeted, caught a touchdown.
Yeah.
They do play this week. They play Miami. So back and forth game. Miami's been really good against wide receivers, though. So that makes it a little bit tough. Cleveland historically, all year has been pretty good against wide receivers. They had a couple injuries last week. Don't know the status of those guys yet, but neither one of them is in a particularly great spot. I think, Greg, we're on board though that these three running backs between Saquon, Swift, and Jaylen Warren got to be in the lineup. It's really just comes down to which of these two receivers are you sitting. So, Greg, I ask you again, half PPR, which one of these guys do you not want to start?
Because Because of the situation, I'll lean to benching Ridley. I give D-Hop, I guess, is getting a little more established with Will Levis. Maybe it's gonna believe that it keeps getting better late in the season. Ridley situation wasn't already good as far as him getting the ball, and now he lost, you know, a person, possibly someone, Kirk, and they can double him more, and his quarterback kind of that can really open the field up for him.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with D Hop. I'm gonna play D Hop and bench Ridley here. I just have less questions about the situation. I like the back and forth nature potentially of this game. D Hop last 3 weeks seeing a 29% target share. Anything we say about Ridley at this point in terms of where his target share goes from here, the potential production, it would purely be speculation.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the things that I know right now, and I think D Hop's going to get those targets, and we'll see what happens when he, in this game here on Monday night.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the game now. So I already talked about the spread, 30 or the total 30.5, the spread Pittsburgh -6. I am taking the under here. I will take New England to cover. I will also take I will take Pittsburgh to win this game.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take Pittsburgh to cover and Pittsburgh to win.
Greg, I guess let's start on the New England side. It seems relatively easy here, but I will ask you, which players are you looking to play out of the New England side?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is the same. Well, without Ramondre Stevenson, obviously, if Demario Douglas is able to go, I think he was also starting to miss practices again this week because of the concussion. But if he's somehow able to go, he's probably the only guy I'm looking at as kind of in that flex conversation. If he's out, Devontae Parker did get targeted 9 times last week. Had a wide receiver 3 day. I think that will kind of be best case scenario for Devontae Parker in this matchup. And that's it.
Yeah, I kind of have it the same way as you. Zeke is going to be a volume dependent RB2 for me this week. Pittsburgh not particularly they haven't been strong against the run all year. James Conner had a very big day against them. Zeke Elliott's been fine all year, despite sharing a bulk of the workload with Ramondre Stevenson. So I have no problem, going after the volume here with Ezekiel Elliott. And to your point about the wide receivers, I think Demario Douglas, if he can go, would probably be a wide receiver 3 for sure. Devontae Parker could fill into that role here as the most targeted receiver for New England if Demario Douglas has to sit. But I'm really only going there out of desperation.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the Pittsburgh side, Greg, where are you leaning when it comes to the wide receivers? We know that Mitchell Trubisky will be starting. So does that make you lean towards one guy or the other, or we saw George Pickens have his best game last week, but a lot of that production came with Pickett in the game. Deontay Johnson caught a garbage time touchdown, but that came from Mitchell Trubisky at the end of the game. Last year, Mitchell Trubisky was the starting quarterback, and this past offense under Matt Canada, by the way, was not very good. We didn't see much improvements with Kenny Pickett, but we did see, the players at one point, Deontay Johnson specifically, vying for Kenny Pickett to be, the starter at one point, middle of the season last year. So does that impact your decision making on which of these receivers you tend to lean towards?
I mean, maybe Deontay, just because of how his play style. I think he can always, with any new quarterback or any new situation or anything in flux, he can still be safer because maybe shorter, more intermediate catches, more receptions. But so I would probably lean that way, but both definitely get a downgrade of what was already like a struggling season for them. So I think they're both also in that wide receiver 3 category for me. with Deontay being safer.
Yeah, and I agree with that notion as well. It seems that Deontay Johnson, like you said, his role is more conducive to being targeted no matter who the quarterback is. He operates in that short to intermediate area of the field. His role is kind of like he's like an extension of the run game there to a degree. So I think I would lean Deontay. I am willing to play Pickens in some spots. New England, not particularly a matchup that I shy away from at the wide receiver position. They did a little bit better these last couple weeks, but over their 3 games, the 21st most fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. So, they're beatable for sure. But I will see both these guys as wide receiver 3s with, me leaning towards Deontay, like you mentioned. At the running back position, if Najee sits, we already talked about Jaylen Warren being the guy. And, if that happens, I think he's a volume-dependent RB2 who can, obviously we know the upside that he has and could make, no matter how this game goes, he will be involved from a, rushing perspective and a receiving perspective as well. But if Najee Harris does suit up, obviously we're assuming that Najee Harris would be suiting up at less than 100%. Does that make you – I think you would play Warren no matter what, given the situation, but would you play Najee if he is playing at less than 100% in this game?
You may be forced to in some situations. There's still some teams on bye. Now I know a lot of people have Brian Robinson, have James Conner. So I think I'd still pull the trigger if I think this game is going to be more about the running backs anyway, field position game. Steelers are going to know that Patriots are not going to be able to really score against them, so they're going to ball control, run the ball a lot. So I think Najee will still have a role if he's able to go. But I do like Warren a lot. If Najee's not going to go, I think he's kind of borderline RB1 for me.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Borderline RB1 makes a ton of sense. I think I call him volume dependent RB2, but I'd probably flip that to more of like a high end RB2 because of his usage and whatnot. Pat Frymuth, any interest?
Yeah.
Came back down to earth last week.
Yeah.
Didn't see only saw 5 targets, caught 3 of them, had about 20 so receiving yards. Do you have any fear that his role changes here with the insertion of Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah, no, I think they kind of want to do the same type of things. I think they'll probably establish the run more, but I'm hoping that Pat Frymuth continues to get 5+ targets. So in that same kind of range, low tier tight end 1 this week.
All right, Greg, and now it's time for the time that no one really cares about for this particular game.
Hey man, first half under.
This is gonna be funny. Hey guys, we don't have to bet on this game, right? There's a decision that we could make to not bet on.
They say the
game.
best bets are the ones you don't make sometimes, for sure.
Hey, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think I'm looking to go. I think you can parlay all these under, so I'm gonna take first half under, and then the game total under as well.
Like that. I've cooked up a first half under, second half under, total under.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna just add that in. Yeah.
The first half under is 15.5. Under the second half under is 13.5.
Yep, I see.
And
it now.
The total under is 30.5.
Plus 268.
Plus 268.
I'm on board.
Okay.
I'm on board. I think this is that game where one bet is fine. One bet is enough.
Yeah, right. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna make a mega super parlay, or maybe the mega super parlay will be just a bunch of unders.
yeah, you could do that.
Uh, but yeah, this is not fun.
No,
This is not a fun game.
not at all.
No, not by any means. Um, Before we move on to streams of the week, we got some questions. Bronson, trade Kincaid and Sutton for Pittman. I mean, it depends on who your tight end is. It's a 2 tight end league. My other tight ends are Taysom Hill, Likely, Waller, and Logan Thomas. Oof. That is tough.
I think he's assuming Waller's gonna probably come back for him.
Yeah, Waller's not coming back in week 14. Could come back in week 15, but at the same time, right? Like the later we get into the season, the less sense it makes to bring Waller back. So that one would be tough to bank on. Logan Thomas has been basically useless for like 6 weeks.
Yeah,
Uh, I like the combo of Likely and Taysom Hill, but Kincaid gives you an advantage that not a lot of people have. Now, Dawson Knox's practice window did get opened up today. So if you're thinking like, does this role change? I've used this phrase a lot this year, but I don't know if you can put Kincaid back in the box.
no, no. He definitely does things for this offense. Knox can't. So yeah, it's a matter of, do you think that jump from Sutton to Pittman is worth your
That's
loss
really what
at
it comes
your
down to. And
tight
Pittman's
end?
been on a heater.
Yes, Sutton's been great too, but like, yeah, Pittman definitely has more upside for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So like Taysom Hill was like more hit or miss.
yep.
Likely, there was the fear that Zach Ertz, who was released by the Cardinals, could potentially sign with the Baltimore Ravens. John Harbaugh has come out and said, they like their tight ends quite a bit, so signaling that they're probably not going in that direction. So Likely has a role, and maybe you're thinking, he can do some of the things Kincaid does for the Bills offense, just not to the high degree that Kincaid does it. There won't be a lot of as much passing volume in the Baltimore offense as there would be in the Buffalo offense. A part of me says, like, on the surface, like, yeah, I want to do this trade, but then within the context of who your tight ends are, the fact that it's a 2 tight end league, so at least having one of those guys is important. I think in 2 tight end leagues, like, I want to at least have a
One
top
top
one,
seven.
one
Yeah,
top 7, one top 5 tight end if I can,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Shoot, I would take 2 of them if I could, but
yeah. Of course.
if I could get one top 5 tight end, like, then yeah, sign me up. And Kincaid kind of is that, man. He's a top 6, top 7 tight end right now. So I'm leaning towards saying let's roll with Kincaid.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's see. He also says I also just got offered DK for JT and Waddle. I ain't accepting that though.
I mean, I think I would do that.
I would think about it.
JT's not coming back.
JT might not come back. I mean, then the question comes back. The question comes down to DK versus Waddle.
I think I want DK. One, Waddle may not finish the games. You haven't seen that boom Tyreek Hill. He used to get really good boom games. That's why you were drafting him as maybe a possible wide receiver 1 with Hill. He's not getting that this year, so they're kind of in that same tier, him and DK at this point.
They really are.
Yeah.
So it's like, I could just trade Waddle, upgrade Waddle to a better situation where I have less of a concern of him not finishing the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Waddle's schedule down the stretch is not good, if I'm not mistaken. Miami has a tough schedule. I know that specifically because of Tua has a tough schedule.
I know they have a Dallas and Buffalo later in the season.
They got Tennessee this week. Then they've got the Jets. Then they've got Dallas. Then they have Baltimore week 17.
Yeah, it's tough.
Those are 2 of those 3 are tough matchups, and then like Greg mentioned, there's the possibility. I mean, it's like likely with any player, but it's more likely with Jalen Waddle that he might not finish the game. So, it really, I think it comes down to the JT news, right? Like they haven't put him on injured reserve. They're still contending.
Yeah.
You makes you think that they probably want him back sooner rather than later. And JT's a guy who's probably pushing to play, right? He's got his money. He's a competitor. He played basically the whole second half with this thumb injury. So, yeah.
I think if you're a 1 or 2 seed, maybe high hopes, maybe you might hold off. Just have him for championship week.
That's where I think that's the best advice, right? If you are in position to get that bye week, probably not a good idea. But then again, if you're trying to win this week, Waddle has a great matchup. Waddle has a really good matchup against Tennessee, and DK doesn't. So, I think you're in the right spot, Bronson. I wouldn't do this deal. Don't do it. All right, let's move on to streams of the week, Greg. And your quarterback stream of the week, I like this one quite a bit. I was actually thinking of going in this direction, but I'm glad you did, Greg. So tell the people who your quarterback stream of the week is.
Yeah, I'm going with Desmond Ridder, going against Tampa Bay. He's 8% rostered, definitely available out there. Only 2 teams on bye this week, so not a lot of options as far as the guys under 50%. People have their guys, but in 2 quarterback leagues, or if you're in a spot where you had Kyler Murray, you can make this move, I think, to get Desmond Ridder in a good matchup, great matchup against Tampa Bay secondary. And I think in good spots, Ridder can give you some big time numbers. Against Washington, against Houston, he put over 300 yards. I think those really good spots, which will come here, he can get some good numbers.
Yeah, man, Ridder. Like you said, Washington, Houston, 300 passing yards. He also gets some on the ground as well. Last time he played Tampa Bay, had 38 yards rushing and a rushing touchdown.
2 for 250 in that one too. Yep.
Yeah. So I think Ridder is in a good spot here. I'm actually going to go with Gardner Minshew. Gets to go up against Cincinnati, 24% rostered in Yahoo leagues, coming off a really good performance last week where he threw for over 300 yards, had 2 touchdowns through the air. Did he get one on the ground as well? No, he did. No, he did not. 2 passing touchdowns, but had a thrilling win in overtime against Tennessee. Now gets to face off against the Cincinnati defense that has allowed the 4th most fantasy points to the position over their last 3 games. Minshew has a strong chance to finish as a QB1 this week.
Yeah, I mean, best case scenario for that Colts team when they lost Anthony Richardson, have Gardner Minshew. He's been kind of the best. He's been the best backup quarterback in the league this year.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just kind of thinking to that he has been the best backup quarterback. They have not missed a beat. They've kind of been rolling. Jake Brown is coming for that title though.
Okay.
Half kidding. But the part I was going to say was you brought up Kyler Murray being on bye, but Sam Howell managers miss Sam Howell.
Oh, true. You're right, Sam Howell. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Greg, what about your tight end stream of the week this week?
Yeah, familiar guy, Chigoziem Okonkwo going against Miami, 33% rostered. I think the last 2 weeks he's definitely come on, being more utilized in this offense. Last 2 games, at least 45 receiving yards in both games, at least 5 targets in both of those games as well. So I like the trend that's going. We all talked about how this game could have some back and forth flow to it, which was how he got those, last yardage last week against Indy. So another good spot for Chigo.
Yeah, man. Chigo is what have I been calling him? A rich man, Kyle Pitts.
Oh yeah. All right, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I forgot I'm not supposed to say that name. Although you weren't here on Monday, and I kind of said the name. So
He did finish top 12 technically, right? Yeah.
you did.
Yeah.
You
There you
did.
go.
That's
Look
why I
at
had to say it.
that.
My tight end stream of the week this week. I'm going back to the well, man. I know he gave us a 0 last week. K. Dotton, 39% rostered in Atlanta, or in Yahoo leagues, going up against Atlanta. And again, he was both our streams of the week last week. Was dropped by a decent number of was dropped in a number of leagues because he put up a goose egg. But that was the first time all year in what was a middle of the road matchup, but he still played on 98% of the team snaps, also ran a route on 94% of the team dropbacks. So his role didn't change. He just didn't see a target for the first time all year. And it's not like the situation around him changed. So I'm willing to write this as a one-off and go back to him here this week against Atlanta, which is a plus matchup. Over the last 3 weeks, Atlanta allows the 7th most PPR points to the position. So K-Dot and fire him up.
Yeah, I mean, I like this one for sure in Atlanta versus Atlanta. That should be a little high scoring. I think if Baker Mayfield was under 50, I would have took him for sure. So I think they both are gonna have some good days.
Most definitely. Greg, looks like great minds think alike. Why don't you tell us who our defensive stream of the week is this week?
Yeah, going with New England versus Pittsburgh. Even though we, said it's under Pittsburgh, New England's probably not going to be able to score the ball. Pittsburgh's also going to have a tough time scoring the ball as well. They might, control the time and everything, but it's going to be ugly. New England's going to be able to create some turnovers, maybe on Mitch Trubisky. The last game they played, they couldn't score, but they only gave up 6 points. So, I see something similar here.
Yeah, and I agree because they're also my defensive stream of the week. Like you said, 25% rostered in Yahoo leagues. Going up against Pittsburgh, right? Look, defensive scoring in leagues is very simple. You start off with, like most leagues, standard leagues, you start off with 10 points. As the other team starts scoring, you start losing points. If they don't score, there's no way you lose points, right?
Word.
So, look, man, these defenses are the only part of this game I'm truly excited to expose myself to.
Yeah, I've never been more excited to watch TJ Watt more in my life. Like, I'm gonna be glued into TJ Watt all game.
Which is kind of important because in our dynasty league, we have the League of Extraordinary People Dynasty League, which is a full IDP league.
Mm-hmm.
TJ Watt is in. We have player awards, and TJ Watt is yearly in contention for the Defensive Player of the Year award in our league. And it's a really tight battle right now between him and Foye Olakun, the linebacker from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's a big week for you this weekend.
Okay,
This is the final week here.
TJ Watt also approaching that sack record too. So yeah, it's definitely.
Is he healthy? Because he was writhing in pain on the broadcast the other day.
Oh. Man played with a torn pec, so I'm not worried.
This is also true. I mean, and you probably only need like one pec or one ankle to really harass him, right?
Yeah, for real.
All right, let's move on to the 1 p.m. games here. The 6-6 LA Rams travel to Baltimore to take on the 9-3 Baltimore Ravens, where this game has a 42.5 point total, and the Baltimore Ravens are 7.5 point favorites at home here. I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the Rams to cover. I will take the Baltimore Ravens to win. Greg, where are you with this one?
Yeah, I'm with you on all three of those. Yeah, for sure.
Now, Lamar Jackson coming off the bye week. I think he's in a good spot here. Should be a QB1. I mean, we saw Joe Flacco, 2 weeks off the couch, pretty much have success through the air against this defense. I think Lamar should be able to do the same here. And honestly, I think from what we've seen from the Rams, I think they can push the Ravens to have to score some points here. I mean, thinking back, they were challenged a little bit. Was it against the Chargers they last played? forget who. I think it was the Chargers. They were challenged a little bit by the Chargers, but even their performance was underwhelming. I think the Rams are, definitely going to be able to push them here. Greg, where are you at with Lamar this week?
Yeah, like Lamar to kind of bounce back. Give a real strong performance, like a top 5 day. Hopefully limit those turnovers. Continue to do that. And getting it to his guys. I think he's finally finding. Zay Flowers finally got in the end zone last week as well.
2 times.
2 times too. Yeah. So hopefully, he can continue that momentum and create another wide receiver 2 day.
Yeah, most definitely. I lean him over OBJ, but I think OBJ has some wide receiver 3 value in what it was only like a few weeks.
Is it revenge?
Gus Edwards, as I said last time, the Baltimore Ravens were getting ready to play an RB3 with some RB1 upside, because if he does not get in that end zone, it's not going to be pretty for us.
Yep.
But Keaton Mitchell, where are you at with him? He was involved a little bit more in the game against the Chargers, looked, pretty good. And, he always looks good when he's getting those opportunities.
Yeah.
But are you throwing him out there? Scored 10 PPR points, had 9 rush attempts, 2 targets, about 90 yards from scrimmage there. Are you interested in throwing him out there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm expecting kind of, if he can give me 10, around that 10 to 12 PPR points again, around that range, I'm expecting that. So that kind of puts him as, low in RB2. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially if this game does have some back and forth nature to it. I do like Keaton Mitchell to be involved here as the pass down back, and possibly getting some opportunities, between the 20s as well. Isaiah Likely had a solid game against the Chargers. They like I said, the Baltimore Ravens weren't really pushed by the Chargers there, but Likely had a decent game. The Rams have been a team where we target tight end position all year, basically. I could go back and list players that have had really, really good games against the Rams. I mean, just look at Harrison Bryant last week. Isaiah Likely has got to be a tight end 1 option this week, right?
Yeah. With the opportunity he's going to get, they're still going to target the tight end. Yeah, you got to plug him in there.
And then on the Rams side, Kyren Williams, man, I mean, he's league winner right now, man. I mean,
sure. Yes, sir.
Absolutely been balling. 2 games back from his return, has more than 20 PPR points, has been a top 3 option, top 4 option at the position. Each of those last 2 games. Baltimore allows the 21st most PPR points to the position, but honestly don't know if it matters.
Yeah, I'm all in with the running game right now. For them, seems to be working very effectively for them to move the ball. Definitely trust the run game more than the passing game options right now, especially.
Yeah, definitely. I will say, though, I do like Stafford this week. Again, there's something I get this feel from this game. There could be a lot of back and forth nature to it. I like Stafford to fall in place as a QB1, and bring along Puka and Cooper Kupp as wide receiver 2s.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'll have the receivers kind of. I think I like Puka a little bit more than Cooper Kupp. But yeah, that's kind of, I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I probably have it, Puka slightly ahead of Cooper Kupp. I mean, we were being honest, Cooper Kupp probably closer to wide receiver 3 range when I rank him. But again, would not be surprised to see Cooper Kupp have himself a nice day. I don't know why I'm just getting this itch, man. Tutu Atwell seems like he could have some potential upside in this game as well.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Anything else on this game, Greg?
No.
Moving on to the 1-11 Carolina Panthers traveling to New Orleans to take on a 5-7 New Orleans Saints. FanDuel Sportsbook has this game as a 38-point over-under, and the New Orleans Saints are 5.5-point favorites at home here. Derek Carr possibly going to miss this game here. Greg, Where are you going with this one?
I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take Carolina to cover, but I'm gonna take the Saints to win.
I'm going to take the over here. I'm going to take the Saints to cover, and I'll also take Jameis Winston for the win. Uh, in terms of the game here, Greg, on the Carolina side, Chuba Hubbard seems to have cemented himself as the RB1. I mean, new coaching staff last week, and the result was Chuba Hubbard getting a bulk of the running back work there for the Carolina Panthers. How do you rank him this week going up in a matchup against the New Orleans Saints, who over the last 3 games allowed the 8th most PPR points to the running back position, surprisingly so?
Yeah, I'm as a solid RB2. I think still this game it's not gonna be kind of open up and down the field like it was last game, and so I think they'll lean on the run a little bit more, even so. And Chuba should be a solid RB2.
Yeah, I like Chuba a decent amount in this game. Liked him a lot last week as well. So think I'm probably going to have him as an RB1 going into this matchup. Your boy Jonathan Mingo came through
Yes,
last
sir.
week, as you so correctly had called. How do you view him this week, coming off a game where he saw 38% of the team targets, which was higher than Adam Thielen?
Yeah, definitely impressive. I mean, definitely not surprised though, given the fact that they do volume highly. We're getting later in the season now. Maybe he's starting to get more comfortable in this offense. I have him as a wide receiver 3. I think the matchup is definitely tougher than it was last week. So I have him in that range, and I think he's the receiver I think I want to start at this point.
Yeah, I mean the matchup not particularly great. 31st most PPR points allowed to the position over the last 3 weeks. New Orleans, pretty much beatable everywhere else. But Mingo, I think the third. If he's seeing, if he, it's going to be hard to predict another 38% of the team targets. But if that were to happen, I would have, if you could guarantee me like, hey, he's going to see the 30 to 38% of the team targets again in this week against New Orleans, like I would sign me up, I'd play him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where does that leave Adam Thielen though?
Tough. I was saying I definitely like Mingo more, and if it's a really tough matchup, I can make the argument he's kind of on that bench category. I think this week, I don't think they're gonna move the ball like they haven't done it all year. The only reason why I kind of liked them last week is because Tampa Bay is awful. So like, yeah, I don't know. I just wide receiver 4, like
Yeah, so he's on your bench, if not on your waiver wire. And as always, don't trust Bryce Young.
no.
Anyway, moving on to New Orleans, the New Orleans side, Alvin Kamara coming off a week where he, but prior to Monday night, finished as the RB1. Are you have any concerns this week? I doubt it against going up against
No. No concerns. You're playing him as one of the top 5 options every week at this point. And I'm sure if you took Kamara and then have Eckler, you're screaming to the high tops right now. You want everything Kamara is right now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. And we could say that because we have in the league, we have both of them.
Yeah, luckily we have Kamara.
And luckily we have Joe Mixon.
Yep.
Chris Olave surprised us all when he determined that he was going to play the Saturday before week 13 kicked off. So back in play as a wide receiver 1 this week, especially with Jameis Winston at quarterback.
Yeah, you should get a high volume of targets. Got 8 last week. Yeah, definitely.
If Rashid Shaheed plays, do you have any interest in him?
Flex, I think. That's the highest I go. Flex consideration.
And then Taysom Hill, tight end 1 option.
Yeah, tied in 1 or tied in 3. Yeah.
I don't
But
know, man. This is Carolina. They allow on a rushing
oh yeah,
touchdown.
they do. Right. Oh, you're right. Yeah, this is the perfect matchup for him. Actually, perfect for him. Yeah.
This has Taysom Hill written all over it, man.
Yep.
No Derek Carr. Like,
Yeah.
someone was bringing up this point to me, and I'm kind of with it, man. They should just run the Wildcat to with Taysom Hill until somebody stops them, and then bring in Jameis Winston on obvious passing downs or when you're behind.
Oh, so start Taysom Hill first and second down. Kind of bring Jameis Winston on 3rd down.
Yeah.
I like it.
Or you're down by 14 points and you're like, all right, we need to come back. Jameis, go do your thing.
I like it actually.
Yeah, right. All right, moving on to this next game here. The 7-5 Indianapolis Colts traveling to Cincinnati to take on the 6-6 Cincinnati Bengals. This game has a 40.5-point total. The Indianapolis Colts are 1.5-point favorites on the road. Interestingly enough, both these teams are facing off after having gone into an overtime game the week before. I'm curious, has that ever happened? Have we ever had two teams play in overtime and then the following week go to play each other? I'm not really sure, but I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts to cover. I'm also going to take the Indianapolis Colts to win this game.
Yeah, I'm hammering this over. This 40.5 is not fooling me for sure. I think it moved up to even 43.5. So yeah, I'm still taking the over, taking Indy to cover and Indy to win. It's gonna be very close though. Very close game.
I really almost put it on Jake Browning, man. Almost. Look,
I'm not surprised if Cincinnati wins either. Yeah.
Would not be surprised. I just like to say I put my money where my mouth is. I bet that took Jake Browning 300 yards plus passing.
That sounds great.
It was okay. I had also had 250 and 2 passing touchdowns in there, so I did not hit that one unfortunately, but it felt really nice to get to hit the 300 yards passing there.
Yeah.
In this game here, Joe Mixon probably has the best matchup on the Cincinnati side. Indianapolis Colts allow the 7th most PPR points to the running back position. I think people were getting a little weary of Joe Mixon's potential usage and what it could look like with this offense, with the backup quarterback. But he's got to be an RB1 this week, especially coming off the performance from last week, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, based off last week, I was very confident for this offense that they won't take the huge hit. Mixon, I think, stays at the same level he's at where you drafted him, high in RB1, and yeah, Chase is kind of back to that explosive level that we can expect him to be like a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I agree. I think Chase. I'm gonna have Chase continue to have him as like a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. Just kind of hedge my bet a little bit because.
Right.
It can, it can fluctuate week to week. He's just like we saw the other night, though. He's so talented that, it's not that it doesn't matter, but Jake Browning can be carried by a little bit here by Jamar Chase, and wide receiver 1 finish is 100% of the range of outcomes. Where are you at with T. Higgins, though? First game back last week, saw 2 targets, didn't show up in the box score, but Jamar Chase had talked about it. I think Jake Browning had even mentioned it as well. The return of T. Higgins to the lineup really helps this offense a lot. Do you think that translates to fantasy production this week?
Yeah, I think so. I think as he gets healthy, it's a matter of Kenny is going to be fully healthy to really produce. I think the targets he's able to get these targets. Last full, I think healthy game, that Buffalo game, he had 8 for 110. So I think he can definitely manage to put up possibly have some wide receiver 2 upside, but I'll still, I'll rate him as like a wide receiver 3 for this game.
Yes, sir. I probably have him as a wide receiver 3 with some wide receiver 2 upside. Not gonna play Tyler Boyd. Don't really have much interest there.
No.
I think Jake Browning, I'll trade him as a QB2 in this matchup. Indianapolis 29th most PPR points to the position in the last 3 weeks. So they've been a little bit better against quarterback than they were to start the year. But, Jake Browning, I mean, I think we just need to go after quarterbacks with names who go after backup quarterbacks whose names associate with a color, because we had Mike White last year, and now we got Jake Browning this year. And so, if they bring in a quarterback, I don't know, Jared Black, just bring him in, just put him there, stream him.
Yeah, no,
Greg,
I think this is gonna be a high scoring game, so I think he's actually gonna surprise some people again.
Yeah, I like the tenor of this game, man. It could be high scoring. Gardner Minshew, my quarterback stream of the week, could finish as a QB1 this week.
Yep.
And the big reason for that is Michael Pittman Jr., who, like we said, has been on a roll. The Cincinnati Bengals allow the 14th most points to the position the last 3 weeks. So not a spot here where I'm afraid to roll Michael Pittman Jr. out by any means. Zach Moss, I think he caught the same thing that all the other backup running backs get when they get the first game as a starter. I think he'd been in the the box a little bit too long, wasn't fresh, was like, oh shoot, I got to start.
Yeah.
So like that's why we got the underwhelming performance. But I think this week, we got a strong performance from him. Might have to do with the fact that Cincinnati allows the 10th most PPR points to the position the last 3 weeks. But I like the backup running back theory a lot more.
Yeah, no, I like both. Definitely like the first one more as well. Yeah.
Josh Downs, was hot for a stretch.
Yep.
Missed some time with the knee injury. Has been back to, I think, his full allotment of snaps these last couple of games, but the fantasy production hasn't entirely been there. How do you feel about him this week? We already talked about the matchup, by way of Pittman, but any interest in Downs as even like a wide receiver 3?
Yeah, probably wide receiver 3. I mean, he's real fluctuates right now. I'm not too confident. I mean, Alec Pierce got a big play last week as well. So he's kind of been in the fold a little bit. So yeah, they're using their tight end even. So I just kind of want to stick with Pittman and be certain about that.
Downs or T. Higgins in the same game?
T. Higgins.
I think that's where I'm leaning to. All right, let's move on. Oh, not move on, actually. There's a tight end that there's 2 tight ends I think we should talk about. First one being Tanner Hudson has been getting, very involved in this offense. Indianapolis allows the 15th most PPR points to the tight end position over their last 3 games. Are you throwing a dart on Tanner Hudson?
Yeah, I think so. Kenny kind of in that, even Granson, Tucker Craft, Chico area, kind of those type names. They're kind of in the bundle of maybe possible streams this week.
Yeah, Kylan Granson was the other name I was going to bring up. Had 70 receiving yards last week.
Yeah.
Has Cincinnati this week, which is one of those other teams where they hemorrhage fantasy points to the tight end position. I mean, 4th most PPR points over the last 3 weeks. Evan Ingram scored his first touchdown. They allow a ton of targets in the short area of the field to tight ends. I mean, the only issue I have with Granson is like there's games where he only has like 2-3 catches.
Yeah. It has to be one of these things where it's a good matchup, a good situation for you to like mention his name. So I think this is one of those weeks.
I did that 2 weeks ago and it didn't work for me.
The world of tight ends,
You are right. Anything else on this game, Greg, before we move on?
No.
Moving on to this next one, we've got the 8-4 Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to Cleveland to take on the 7-5 Cleveland Browns. This game has a 36.5 point total. The Cleveland Browns are 3-point favorites. Greg, where are you going with this one?
Yeah, definitely taking the under, taking the Browns to cover and the Browns to win.
Yeah, I see it the same way. In terms of the fantasy matchups, or the fantasy side of it, Elijah Moore coming off a big game. You know, peripheral wise, 12 targets, had 4 receptions, 83 receiving yards. At the one point, I thought he was going to even have a much bigger day, but probably going to be a wide receiver 2 for me this week. Jacksonville allows the 4th most PPR points to the position, so I like Elijah Moore a decent amount in this one.
Yeah, I'm with that as well. Mark Cooper being banged up, I'm all in for Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I mean, already has the chemistry with Joe Flacco going back to their time with the Jets. So, yeah, I think Elijah Moore is a strong play this week. How are you feeling about Jerome Ford? Seems like the backfield, did catch a touchdown pass last week, but outside of that, his box score was left a lot to be desired, and there was a pretty even split between him and Kareem Hunt, and even Pierre Strong got into the mix as well. Are you feeling any less confident in Ford as we enter playoff time?
Yeah, I mean his carries have just been progressively decreasing. I think he had 26 weeks ago, and now he's down to 9. Each week has been dwindling, so definitely concern there for him to be RB2. I think he's definitely all those guys are kind of muddled into that RB3, RB4 area now. So for me, definitely, I think Ford maybe has a slight edge, but he's just right on that top 30.
Yeah, I'm going to maybe this will be wrong of me, but I'm going to put him as an RB2. I just kind of feel like they've been at their best when they've turned around and they've handed him the football, and they've just run the football. I think they got, maybe, I don't know, maybe they felt like they had to keep pace with the Rams, and the Rams were obviously scoring almost at will, it seemed, for a period of time. So I don't know if they just kind of abandoned the run game, but I'm going to go back to Ford as an RB2. Joe Flacco, I think, is in a halfway decent spot again. Don't know. I mean, if you're in 2 quarterback leagues, maybe you have to go this route. I mean, Jacksonville over their last 3 games allowed the 4th most fantasy points to the quarterback position. So I think Flacco makes a ton of sense as a fill-in option. If you are playing in a 2 quarterback league and you don't have a Kyler Murray or are missing a Sam Howell, I think you could definitely go the direction of Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, on the in terms of tight end, right? Harrison Bryant, big game last week. I've been a huge Harrison Bryant fan from a dynasty perspective, but David Njoku on paper is the tight end 1, but again was outperformed by Harrison Bryant there. Do you, by any chance, lean one way or the other with these tight ends?
It's hard to really kind of predict, definitely, for those two. I think maybe there's a spot where they're both kind of startable in a way, as streaming options. Because David Njoku, you've seen the trend kind of all season. He's been kind of steady. Harrison Bryant definitely just came upon the season for last week, so I'm still lean Njoku a little bit, but yeah, definitely monitor that situation more again this week.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm just gonna kind of let it play itself out. I would you start Njoku this week, or would you look for another option while you let it play out?
Yeah, I would go for the guys you mentioned for kind of streams of the week. I'd probably go for a Tucker Craft maybe as well. So yeah, I think those guys I would try to go before Njoku, but if you're forced to play Njoku, it is what it is, I think.
Yeah, I agree there. The matchup is not bad, right? Jacksonville allows a 4th. No, sorry, I take that back. Matchup is not great. Jacksonville allows the 27th most PPR points to the tight end position, so maybe it's worth sitting this one out. Maybe you can get to like a Gerald Everett or Kate Otten or one of those guys while you see how this one plays itself out. All right, moving on to this next game here. We've got the 5-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Atlanta take on the 6-6 Atlanta Falcons. This game has a 39.5 point total. Atlanta Falcons are 2.5 point favorites. I am taking the over here. I'm going to take Tampa Bay to cover. I'm going to take Tampa Bay to win. Although this does contradict my Atlanta Falcons winning the NFC South. I do kind of still need that to happen. But I'm going to stick with my picks here, Greg. Where are you going?
Yeah, definitely still some weeks left for the regular season for football. But yeah, I'm with you as well. Over Tampa Bay to cover, Tampa Bay to win.
Now, Bijan Robinson, I think he's really taken a hold of this backfield and has really made it his over this last 3 games. 49% of the team rush attempts. That's compared to just 23% for Tyler Algier and 14% for Cordero Patterson. Also, during that same time span, seeing 20% of the team targets. So, Bijan Robinson, RB1 role just in time for the fantasy playoffs. He's an RB1 this week.
Yeah, RB1. Glad to see that, he's finishing the season strong for fantasy managers.
Most definitely. Drake London finds himself in a nice spot as well. Has long been the lead target getter here for the Atlanta Falcons offense, and has somewhat of a plus matchup. Tampa Bay has gotten a little bit better against wide receivers the last 3 games, but they're still a plus matchup. Probably going to be a wide receiver, in that wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3 range with some, high end wide receiver 2 upside for me this week.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Now, anything you want to say about the position that's not quite a wide receiver, but also not quite an offensive lineman?
I do like Ritter. One of them's going to get targeted 5-6 times. I would think maybe close to 8 times. Depending on how this game goes. Will they do anything with that? Meaning like double-digit fantasy points is another question.
I mean, there's this guy here, number 8 for the Atlanta Falcons. I think his name is Pile Kitts.
Okay.
23% of the team targets the last 3 weeks. Second on the team. Leads all tight ends on his team in that category. Finished as a tight end 1 last week. Is in a halfway decent spot here as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers allow the 11th most PPR points to the position. Is there any interest in that player that I didn't name?
I feel like there would if you like, kind of a player A type thing, but this player also, when he has a solid week, in the next week, you're like, oh man, this is it. He, gives you 2 for 20 the next week. So I don't know if I can fully trust it, but given that I do like Ritter, I think he's, playable in this game.
Okay, fair enough. It's more than I was that's more than I was expecting to get out of you, Greg.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Tampa Bay side, Baker Mayfield, like you had touched on, in a decent spot here. Atlanta, they looked much better. Looked like a much better matchup for quarterbacks before they played the Jets last week. So I think Baker Mayfield could take advantage of this matchup here. Mike Evans got to be a wide receiver 1 this week. Rashad White,
Beast.
strong RB2 at least, at a minimum. High end RB2 with some significant RB1 upside. And then Cade Otton, tight end, my tight end stream of the week, is like I talked about earlier, in a really good spot here.
Yeah, definitely like all those guys, especially Rashad White. In any in competitive games, he seems to really they utilize him a lot more. Game script and stuff like that is favoring him for sure. So see another 15 to 20 carry day.
Yeah, and Greg, did you know Chris Godwin scored a rushing touchdown last week?
I did not know that.
Do you know how many fantasy points he had?
6.
7.9.
6.1. 7.
kind of just reinforces what I said last week.
Yeah. On Mike Evans, you're only looking his way for sure.
Yeah, you cannot play Chris Godwin.
No.
You can't. Yeah, it was funny because he scored the rushing touchdown. I was like, oh, just when I said can't play Chris Godwin, touchdown. And I'm going through the performances for the week, and I was like, no, Chris Godwin still didn't score double digits. Absolutely crazy. Anything else on this game, Greg, before we move on?
No.
On to the next one. The 9-3 Detroit Lions traveling to Chicago to take on the 4-8 Chicago Bears. This game has a 41-point total. Detroit Lions are 3-point favorites. Greg, you are nodding your head. You must be excited for this game.
Yeah, 41 is a little low. I feel like for this game, I think these two teams, Lions have been a lot of high scoring games this year. I think the Bears can really put some points on the board for this game. Fields should have a field day literally here. So I'm taking the over, taking Chicago to cover, but I'm sorry, taking the Lions to cover and Lions to win 3-point spread. So I think it's a 3-point game.
I thought we was about to be on the same page here because I'm taking over, taking Chicago to cover. Taking Chicago to win. I mean, if we remember, right, Chicago basically had this game in the bag.
Yeah.
In Detroit, the last time these two teams played, Detroit was able to overcome a 12-point deficit in like 3 minutes.
Yep.
Absolutely absurd. But if you just look at Detroit, like Jared Goff has not played well. Like he has not played well. He has not played well, and it started with this game here back in Detroit, and now they're going to be in Chicago. Like I said, Chicago's at home here. So I really do like this defense to get after Jared Goff a little bit. Chicago allows the 31st most fantasy points to the quarterback position. Since that trade for Montez Sweat, they've really ramped up defensively. And, that even has shown its way, against the run as well. So on the Lions side, I'm not really interested in playing Goff outside of 2 quarterback leagues. I think the running backs are probably RB2s. Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think those guys, they're going to be ones at their position. But, Amon-Ra St. Brown had probably his worst game of the year just recently, and he scored a touchdown. So I'm still looking to those guys. But do you disagree with any of that, Greg?
No, yeah, I'm with that. I think those 2 running backs are the best running back tandem in the league. I think one of them is a lock for a touchdown still as well. So yeah, I still like them as very solid RB2s. One of them with RB1 upside still. Yeah, and those pass catchers are money all season.
Now on the Chicago side, you already talked about Fields having a field day. Detroit allows the 3rd most fantasy points to the quarterback position. Justin Fields has 30 rush attempts in his last 2 games. Really strong numbers there for Fields. An average of 15 rush attempts per game there. So I think between the combination of Detroit being, susceptible to quarterback scoring and Justin Fields running as much as he's been running, I think he's a shoo-in for a QB1 finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Wherever his rushing total is, I think he kind of overcomes that for sure. I could see him getting a 100-yard rushing day. I think he could finish the QB1 on the week with this matchup for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Cole Kmet, I think you bring him along as a tight end 1 this week. I mean, Detroit's been a halfway decent matchup for, they're halfway. When I say halfway decent, they allow the 20th most PPR points to the position. So, but I think Cole Kmet still be involved. DJ Moore, obviously, he'll have a role here as well. So a strong wide receiver too. But then the question comes down to the backfield. Where are you leaning? We saw, obviously, Foreman was the guy for a bulk of the year when Khalil Herbert was out with injury and Roshan was out. But then Foreman got hurt, and then Herbert was the guy, but Roshan's been playing as well. Where are you going with this week?
Yeah, I'm kind of out on it. I don't think, there's really any situation where they're. I like Foreman when he was healthy, and then to have the highest upside. The one that looks the best now, Roshan probably. So if I had to lean towards one of them having a solid day, it'd be him. But that'd be RB3 day for me.
Yeah, and I'm with you in the same place. I lean Roshan. He's looked the best. I think, if you just pull out my crystal ball and look into 2024, he's the guy most likely to be on the roster next year. So
Yeah,
it definitely makes a ton of sense for the Bears to find out what they have in Roshan Johnson sooner rather than later. So yeah, I would definitely lean towards him.
word.
And now moving on to the last game, and it was a very interesting, intriguing matchup leading into the week. Nothing had to do with the football.
Yo, you going to this game? You gotta see. Are you gonna see Stroud out here?
I am going to the
Yeah, you
game.
got to, yo. You got to. Gotta see Stroud.
Yeah, I'm just actually happy that Zach Wilson is starting this game because I could not watch the Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian led offense. Like I really couldn't. Like I thought the Zach Wilson offense was bad, but like at least the Zach Wilson offense, like the range of outcomes is like this, right? Like
Yeah,
I get it, the fact that like, hey, there's gonna be some lows, but there's also gonna be a decent amount of highs in this game too, with Zach Wilson. With like Trevor Siemian and Tim Boyle, the range of outcomes is like this.
hmm
And it's like everything was bad. There was literally no good.
yeah.
So I'm here for it. Although nothing much changes for me for this game. The 7 and
No.
5 Houston Texans traveling to MetLife to take on the 4 and 8 New York Jets. This game has a 34.5 point total. Houston Texans are 5.5 point favorites on the road. I have basically picked the Houston Texans in every game except for one. I'm not changing that now. Taking the under, taking Houston to cover. I'm taking Houston to win.
Yeah, totally agree with you with that. AFC South is gonna come down to the wire, man. It's crazy how we thought this division was gonna be kind of weak, and it's starting to be one of the most interesting ones, especially with the Trevor Lawrence injury now.
Yeah, definitely an interesting division. And I think the interesting part is, Anthony Richardson is injured, but the quarterbacks in this division, right? Like
Yeah,
they're all young. I mean, from Stroud to Anthony Richardson
yep.
to uh,
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor
Yeah,
Lawrence and now Will Levis as well.
yeah,
These are all guys. Trevor Lawrence is the most tenured one, and he's in his third year in the league, right?
yeah.
So this division should be interesting for several years to come. But this is a tough matchup for Stroud. I don't think I'm going to like if he had Tank Dell, I would feel a lot better about this. But at the same time, like I don't know if it matters. I think CJ Stroud's gonna get his kind of no matter what.
No, yeah. It doesn't matter. CJ Stroud has locked himself into kind of that matchup-proof territory.
Now, Nico Collins, he's a wide receiver one, obviously. I think with the Tank Dell injuries are not super concentrated because they've also shown that they could go to Noah Brown, they could go to
Robert
Robert
Woods,
Woods,
Dalton
right?
Schultz. Yeah,
Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan, even like Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie. So there's places that they can go, but I feel like a lot of Tank Dell's work is going to end up on Nico Collins' lap.
yeah. He's definitely the one. I mean, he was kind of arguably the one with everyone healthy. So yeah, he's the clear one now. I think after that, it's gonna be. I think Noah Brown has the highest upside, but after that, and then Robert Woods, third.
Now, how do you feel about Nico Collins in this matchup going up against the Jets, who you can say what they want, you can say what you want about them as a team, but the pass game is where quarterbacks and defense and quarterbacks and wide receivers struggle against that defense. They allowed the 28th most PPR points to the position the last 3 weeks. We did see Tyreek Hill have have a big game against this Jets defense. Do you feel like Nico Collins can somewhat come close to replicating that?
I think Tyreek Hill is the only exception to any tough matchup. Like historically tough. Like this is a very good secondary. Nico definitely. Everyone else gets a downgrade, so I think Nico will get a slight downgrade here. So he's still a wide receiver 2 for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have him as a high end wide receiver 2. I mean, he's gonna continue to see targets, continue to see. I think they're gonna move him around the formation. Right, he had a tough matchup last week, and even when Tank Dell goes out, you could be like, all right, well, the Denver perspective, they're like, okay, well, we could just put Patrick Surtain on Nico Collins. And I'll be honest again, I don't know exactly what happened with that game, but all I know is that Nico Collins was still able to produce, whether that was
Yep.
they were moving him around to get him away from Patrick Surtain, or maybe there were times where he had just gotten the better of Patrick Surtain. But the Jets have given up big games to opposing number one wide receivers. The main reason being they don't travel their corners. So if you want to get away from them, you can. If you don't want to get matched up on Sauce Gardner, you just don't line them up on that side.
Yep.
So I do think Nico Collins can come in as a strong, wide receiver 2. Noah Brown, I think, is a wide receiver 3 with some wide receiver 2 upside. I like, like you mentioned, Robert Woods. I think he can have a role, but he's probably a guy I'm looking to more next week when they play Tennessee versus this week when they play the Jets. The one thing to discuss, though, is the running back position. Dameon Pierce seemed to resume his role as the lead guy in the backfield. If there's a place you can beat the Jets, it's 2 of them, running back and tight end. The New York Jets allow the 3rd most PPR points to the running back position over their last 3 matchups. So Dameon Pierce, I think, slides into if he's going to get the volume he got last week and going to be the lead guy like he was last week, I think he slides in as an RB2.
Yeah, agree with that. And Devin Singletary being a RB3, he still got close to 10 touches last week. So, yeah, I'll put him in that RB3 territory.
And now on the Jets side, Garrett Wilson. I never thought I'd say this, but we missed Zach Wilson. I think last week did not get the work that we were expecting. There was a ton of people that were in the stands, watched the all 22, and were like, "Hey, Garrett Wilson was open. These quarterbacks just were not throwing him the football." There's one thing we know about Zach Wilson: he will hyper target Garrett Wilson here, and this is a beatable Houston pass defense. They allow the 6th most points to the quarterback position, only 22nd most PPR points to the wide receiver position. But I feel like Garrett Wilson, if he's going to see 8, 9, 10 targets in this game, wide receiver 2, at least wide receiver 3 has got to be in the range of outcomes.
Yeah, he's back to kind of what he was, majority of the season. I think, wide receiver 2 getting a lot of targets, probably gonna get close to 10 over that number again. So yeah, you're putting him in that lineup. Tyler Conklin can be the only other guy. I mean, saw a lot of volume last week. Zach Wilson's back, so I don't know if the targets will change, but he's gotten targets with him before, so I think he's also in the streaming category for tight ends.
And now the uncomfortable conversation. What about Breece Hall? What are we doing now?
I don't know. It's tough for them to move the ball no matter who they have at quarterback. He's getting volume, but it's not going anywhere with it. It's not going anywhere with it. So he's kind of RB3.
That's exactly where I have him, as an RB3. The higher end of RB3, just because he is so a freak, right? If he's going to continue to see that work, continue to see that volume.
In reception still, so that's
good.
Good.
And if Zach Wilson is able to move this offense even the slightest bit, right, then I think Breece Hall can get to those range of outcomes where he falls into like an RB2 type day, maybe rips off a long run, falls in the end zone or something. But yeah, we're grasping at straws here if you are really banking on Breece Hall to lead you to a victory this week.
Yeah.
And that is all we have for today's 1 p.m. games. So tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, we will be back on to break down all the remaining slate of games. We've got a Monday night header. God, do I hate those.
Oh, those are really late nights.
No, it's actually
Well,
not
they're
even
both at the same time. You're right. Oh, all right. Yeah, that's fine. I could just watch the Dolphins game.
Oh man! All right. So again, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll be on here tomorrow live as we normally do, 99% of the time, unless StreamYard decides to not let us in like it didn't do today. Shout out to StreamYard for doing your job. Anyways, y'all. Until next time, again tomorrow. We'll see y'all then. Tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody, and we'll be out right now. We're out of here. Peace.
Yeah.